Gayle Saunders here with Jimmy Smith and Chris Mallee talking the prospect. What we're going to do here, we're going to do a series of talking a lot of these NFL draft prospects, guys that were interested, guys that were pretty high on, and guys that people on the timeline are talking about. One guy that people have been talking about, it's mixed reviews on Jalen Reagor out of TCU. Right off the bat, initial feelings about Jalen Reagor.
I'm a big fan of Jalen. I've really been watching him since January, even more than I was during the regular season, just because I know that people are really interested in adding some speed, some dynamic playmakers to this offense after watching Carson have to carry the team using tight ends and the practice squad guys. I think he'd be a great fit.
The kid's phenomenal, but honestly, it goes against what I was originally thinking. Past couple months, you're looking at things, and sure, we want speed. We want someone to take off the top. We missed that with Deshaun Jackson. We thought we were getting that last year. But when you look at things, it's like we need somebody that can run routes. We need somebody that can catch that ball. And that's what I've been harping on the last couple months. But honestly, the past week, I've been really checking out this Jalen Reagor kid, and he's phenomenal. So when you guys had said about, bringing up these videos and doing one on Jalen, I had to jump one because the kid really broke everything that I believed in the last couple of months because, my God, he can run the routes. He can do it all. You hear about his concentration or whatever, but other than that, the kid's phenomenal. Sure, he might not look like a number one right now. He might not be an X receiver, but I'd be perfectly fine with the Z receiver that comes in and does the things that Tyreek Hill does in Doug Peterson's Andy Reid's offense. But we got Doug Peterson here, so he's trying to do the same thing. I'd love to have a dynamic playmaker like him.
Initial thoughts on Reagor. He's just explosive talent. I think we're talking about a player who can win from intermediate routes, the short game, get vertical, jet sweeps, trickery,
absolutely,
and give you something on special teams. When we're talking, at the moment, I think Eagle fans are wondering where we stand at number 21. Do we move back and acquire more picks? Is he a guy that his skill set matches our needs kind of like perfectly? And is he the right guy? Because there'll be other receivers that talk about in other videos, like Denzel Mims, Justin Jefferson from LSU. But I think in terms of like what this offense is looking for moving forward is explosiveness. I mean, he's a guy that one of the things that he talked about in his interview at the combine is making an immediate impact.
I'm coming to make immediate impact wherever I go.
What do you think about that? Did you think he brings immediate impact?
Absolutely. I just did a post about it, and I said, and Gayle, this was our guy last year, Deebo Samuel. I was watching the combine, and Jalen's like, listen, like, I don't like to compare myself on my own guy, but if I had to say, like, Deebo Samuel, Tyreek Hill, like, these are guys that, like, and Stephon Diggs, like, these are guys that, like, my game is close to. And the craziest thing is, if you put the combine scores up against each other, both ran like 4.47s, bench press over 15 times, vertical. Jalen blew him out of the water, 3 inches. He hit 42-inch vert. Deebo hit 38. 138 broad for Reagor, who's a former Texas state champ in the long jump. He's just a freak athlete. And like you said, day one impact, to piggyback off of you, Gayle, every single facet of the game. You can get him on screens, handoffs. He can go deep. He can play slot, punt return, kick return, 14-yard average on punt returns, 21-yard average on kick returns. So that's the thing, though. Like, you're not stuck on him just being a receiver. He can do everything. So immediate impact day one, that's Jalen Reagor in my mind.
I think that kid comes in right away. He's explosive, dynamic, just like Chris alluded to. I really think he's really being slept on here because of the quarterback play last year. He came in his freshman year. Kid had 33 catches, 576 yards, 8 touchdowns. He was the co-freshman of the year, the Big 12. That's pretty phenomenal. Then he comes out his sophomore year. He only started 2 games his freshman year. Let's hit on that. He comes back out. He starts 11 of 13 games the next year. He had 72 catches, I believe it was, for 1,061 yards, 9 touchdowns. He's averaging 17.5 yards per catch. That's amazing. Then you see his last year, junior season, you see a fall off. You see 33 catches, He had like 500 some yards, 561, I believe it was, and only 5 touchdowns. Now, 4 of those 5 touchdowns were for over 20 yards. So the guy's a home run hitter. But you have to realize he didn't have the same quarterbacks that he did have. It was Sean Robinson, Michael Collins, who were both throwing for over 1,000 yards, hooking this kid up. Well, now you got a freshman, Max Dugan. The kid was not good. 30.7 of the passes were on target that were thrown to him. So he just really was not getting the balls that he needed. I mean, if you give someone like Carson Wentz this receiver, I think that you're going to see an immediate impact on this offense that Deshaun Jackson was supposed to have right away.
I mean, you're talking about that kind of quarterback play, Carson Wentz versus the quarterbacks that he was playing with. That's a huge upgrade.
Exactly.
I think one of the issues, you can see it a little bit in his game where the offense is so bad that he starts to I don't know, he looks a little disinterested at times. Some of blocking plays, he shows a little lack of effort on. But I mean, when your offense is that bad and not performing at a high level, wide receivers can get disinterested, especially
for sure.
Wide receivers can be divas. But the one thing that was interesting, I started looking at the number. Obviously, people will compare players to another player, and initially you think Deshaun Jackson. Is that a guy that automatically you think of when you see Reagor?
I think that that was one of the initial just because the explosiveness and speed aspect. But then I started looking at the body type and the build. Steve Smith Sr., huge guy. He's just ball on the hand, electric. And Deebo Samuel was the other guy because they're both 210, same height, same 40, explosive, and they're just tough. They're dudes that when you hear them talk about their game, they're listen, just get me the ball. And that was the problem, like you were saying. If you watch the game, the ball was he was always open. He's always open. That's why people are I don't know about his routes. It's listen, he's always open. His quarterback's throwing it at his feet, out of bounds, over his head. They said he left probably 600 yards and 8 touchdowns on the table just because the quarterback couldn't even hit him. Yeah,
I mean, I'm looking at Reagor's stats. 147 receptions, 2,248 yards, 22 touchdowns, 15.2 yards per catch. Yeah. Rushing 324 yards, 2 touchdowns in his career, 23 punt returns, 409 yards, 2 TDs. Now looking at Deshaun Jackson's stat, 162 receptions, 2,423 yards, 22 touchdowns, 15 yards per catch. 38 returns, 633 yards, 16.7 on punt returns, 6 TDs. It's just it's kind of I mean, I'm not gonna say he's exactly Deshaun Jackson, but he reminds me of his explosiveness. Sure. He pops right off the screen, and he's got that dog mentality. When you're looking at him attack the football, that's the kind of lack of excitement that you got from Nelson Aguilar. The way that he attacked the football in the air, the way he high points the ball.
Exactly.
42-inch vertical. You can use him down by the goal line, and then he can win some of those contested catches. I mean, he's not going to body out everyone. He's not the biggest receiver. He's 5'11".
But he's going to try to, though.
Right. He's going to.
And that's the biggest thing. You're not going to get an interception for lack of effort on his part. He's always going to go up for the ball. He'll probably get a bunch of defensive pass interferences because people are dragging him down. He's just a tough kid. And I was talking about the other day, this is the obvious pick that you need Howie to make if he's there. And especially if they do decide to trade back, in front, because I know Green Bay loves him at 30. If they stay in front of Green Bay and we move back a little bit and he's there, he's the DK Metcalf pick. We have the inside track on him. I was talking about that the other day, with Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp and Carson Wentz had the same agent. Cooper Kupp and Carson Wentz were friends. Carson's yeah, this kid's good, and then we didn't take him. That's Reagor. His dad played here in 2007. His dad worked here in 2011. His dad's friends with Moorhead. Moorhead's been FaceTiming Reagor. It just makes too much sense. And John Kitna was his high school coach in Texas. He's his whole life he's been seeing what it takes to be an NFL player. His dad, his coach, and then now when he's at TCU, he tore up, and then he obviously he's not perfect, but like every game, even if his quarterback was overthrowing him, he'd be like, okay, punt return time, take it to the house or go like 50 yards with it. Like every time he got the ball in his hands or the opportunity, he did something with it, and that's why I appreciate it. Like obviously, like you want him to clean up some stuff, but no one's perfect. None of these prospects are perfect, but this kid has it though.
Yeah, if his only knocks are his comparisons to Deshaun Jackson, where he's getting a couple of muff punts or, it's concentration drops, I'm more than okay with that because he's looking for the home run. And if you think about it, he's playing in such a terrible offense. You got to think in his mind, my God, I just got to get this ball. And when he finally gets a chance, he's just trying to do something with it. Imagine where you're not the focal point of the offense, where sure, you're a huge part of it, but look at all the weapons we have. If you had him in there, my God, it's going to be explosive. So I agree with Chris. I loved the comparison to Steve Smith. That's exactly who I've been looking at. Sure, Steve Smith had a little bit faster of a 40 time, but the way I feel about combines, it's a nice way to look at certain little things, but you got to take it with a grain of salt. I mean, you watch the tape on this kid, his fluid movements, the way that this kid moves, and he just keeps his hips straight. And then when he does hit his cuts, his breaks, his double moves, watch the tape. He like Chris alluded to, him high pointing the ball, the way he fights for it. Sure, some of his issues are coming off the line. He's not exactly an X receiver where he's going to be fighting some of these tougher guys. But if his only knocks are he's not the toughest, but he's fast as hell, just like Deshaun Jackson's knocks were, I'm more than okay with it. So, yeah.
I mean, I just like the way that he separates at the top of his routes.
Exactly.
And the beginning. Yep.
I mean, then he separates on these vertical routes as well. Like he at three levels, and it's exciting to see our score on all different types of levels, like running the football, taking a screen to the house, getting vertical, just all different types of, on special teams scoring touchdowns. When you're talking about a prospect and his value, versatility is everything to me. And if you could move him inside, move him outside, give him jet sweeps, and the most important thing, he was a consistent playmaker from his freshman year on to his senior year. To his junior year. So I think the sky is the limit for this prospect. Obviously, we have to talk about some of the negatives. Any negatives that come up.
So the main knocks on him were people talked about concentration catches, but the whole thing, like Benjamin Stolock actually did a video about this. It was like about his freshman and sophomore year, like he had trouble high pointing the ball, fighting through contact, stuff like that. Junior year, he was one of the best in the country at that, and that's what like the whole thing is. It was progression. Anytime anyone said, "Hey, you're not good at this," he proved them wrong. It was like anything, and the big thing was like the hands thing. In the offseason, he won a hands competition against all the other prospects. And like that's the thing though, like if I see that your willingness, like his willingness to growth, like I can bank on that. I can be like, okay, like this kid can do he's like a five-tool player. He's a five-tool player. And the big thing is he has the mentality, he has the pedigree. And that's why he's always been like the guy that I wanted to be on the team. Like I initially said he probably will be a second-round pick, and then everyone's saying, okay, he's moving on to the first. I'm like, that's fine. Like I'd rather them take the guy that they really believe in, and like people are like, oh, you should have just waited or traded up in the second, than risk not getting him, because we did that before. Like we were like, oh, Brandon Cooks is available, then we kept moving back, and then you end up with Marcus Smith. Just take the guy. Like you can't be afraid of taking the guy. Don't blink. If they really truly believe in him and they think that he can be a dynamic day one impact guy, you gotta take him. Because like I was saying, there's a finite amount of guys in the draft that can do what he does. Like I know how loaded this wide receivers class is, but it's like the Ruggs, the Hamler, the Ayuk probably, and the Reagor. Like these are guys that from anywhere on the field can score. There's guys like CeeDee Lamb who are clear-cut X receivers. The Claypools, they're awesome, but they're not going to be home run threats from all over the field. Like it's just not how it is. 'Cause people get all caught up on the combine with Claypool and everything. Like there's not many times this guy is catching a slant and going like 80 yards. Like Reagor, Hamlin, Ruggs, that's what they're doing. So that's the big difference. So
I think one of the first thing you said it would be blocking. We talked about the concentration and we talked about those things. I think that's awesome what Chris was saying about he worked on all those things. That was something I was going to allude to. He got better. And one of the things I see is blocking. A lot of times you'll get that. We talked about how receivers are. And especially when your team's not winning, why are you going to be out there blocking? He just feels like he should be getting the ball all the time. So that's something he comes in here and learns from. Aaron Moorhead, who Chris also had alluded to earlier. I love the addition of Aaron Moorhead.
Mm-hmm.
I like Matthew Harper as well, the assistant wide receivers coach. They really have been high praising this guy for a while. So they bring him in, and I'm really intrigued to see what they do, because last year my biggest thing was the wide receivers coach, Carson Walsh. It was ridiculous. Week after week, we saw they were not coaching these kids up. Arcega-Whiteside, I still believe in this kid. And, people are, oh, he's terrible. I really don't see it. I really don't. I think this is going to be a really great thing having Moorhead and Harper here. So I think these are going to be great. Another thing Chris had said earlier in the video was about possibly trading back. That was one of the scenarios I had looked at as well, and what originally had maybe be intrigued by Reagor, because it was, can we move back? Can we fandangle with that? What scares me, though, is the fact that the Vikings did trade Stephon Diggs. So they are sitting there with 2 picks behind us. So if we do trade back, that scares me. So like you had just said, maybe if you really like him, which I do, you take that pick at 21. You go ahead. Honestly, I've been watching all the receivers, and it seems like Lamb, Judy, that's out of the water there. But, Ruggs, people want. I like Ruggs, but I'm going to be honest with you. I like Jalen. I really do, and I think I like him more. So this would be the pick for me for the Eagles. I'm all for it.
Yeah, I think just going back to some of the weaknesses, like you talked about, some of the effort plays and the concentration drops. I mean, you can go back to the West Virginia game in 2018. He had like a post wide open. He just, just had a concentration drop, and then he had a third down and like 4 or something wide open, and he just dropped it. And then going back to 2019, he had another drop against West Virginia. Just concentration drops. I think obviously he can clear some of those up. I mean, all receivers have drops at some point. But I think just overall his skill set really excites me. Obviously, we could trade back a little bit, maybe 2 spots or something, and still get Reagor. That would be amazing. But overall, I think we did a good job covering Jalen Reagor. I think the timeline is still fighting right now. I think the timeline is still looking for their guy. But I think overall, I think we covered him pretty well. Any last thoughts on Reagor?
Literally, you were just saying about it made me think of, one of his knocks is the whole concentration. Well, you'll hear it all day. But one of the plays I love watching, in comparison to Sean Jackson, go back to the tape and watch the game against Kansas where he muffs a punt, picks it back up, and runs it for 73 yards to the house, baby. So that made me think of Deshaun right away. So, yeah, that was one thing that was just sitting in the back of my head. But other than that, great job, guys. I loved it.
Chris, do you have a favorite play from
Jalen Reagor? Oh, 100%. It's the just game in general, the Ohio State game. Damon Arnett. Yeah. Damon Arnett, he's one of my favorite cornerbacks in the draft. I think if he's there at 53, or we can move up for a little bit, I think Damon Arnett's going to be like easily one of the most slept-on cornerbacks in this draft, just because Okudah got all the hype. But Reagor one-on-one just gets a top stem on him, just one-handed catch on Arnett and keeps running in stride. But the big thing, last thing with Reagor is we talk about the concentration drops. West Virginia game. In cut, drops the ball, and I'm like, dude, come on, because I'm trying to find good tape on him, but I have to share the bad tape too, and TCU is just not doing well. It's the whole first quarter, all of a sudden punt return catches it 70 yards. It's okay, and then he catches another ball, and then he catches another ball, and that's the thing with him though. That's the difference, because everyone is worried about the drops. I'm worried about what happens after the drop. Is he putting his head down? Is he on the sideline? Is he all pissed off? Because that was the difference between the Nelson Aguilars and the Amari Coopers. Amari Cooper has been one of the biggest drop leaders since he came in the NFL. So he'll drop the ball, but then he'll score an 80-yard touchdown. That's the thing with Nelson Aguilar. He'll drop the ball, and then he'll drop 3 more, and then you lose a game. Jalen Reagor is a guy who's going to learn from his mistakes, and he's going to keep fighting. And that's why I've always been high on him. He doesn't just give up.
Well, I think that's it for us, guys. I think we did a pretty solid job covering Reagor. I think he's definitely a prospect in our eyes for the Eagles to look at. But that's all for us. Guys, let them know where they can find you on social media.
For Twitter, it's Mallee _Chris_24. Or just look up Chris Mallee on Twitter.
You can find me, Jimmy Smith, at OTR2Victory, on the road to victory.
And you can find me at Eagle Sessions on Twitter. But that's all for us. Fly, Eagles fly.